Hello, everyone. We are officially kicking off the third week of our inaugural roundtable here at the Parent Tween Connection. And if you and I haven't met yet, my name is Clarissa, and I'm the founder of the Parent Tween Connection. And our mission is to create a community for parents and grandparents and all of the adults in the proverbial village that it takes to raise a child and connect you to each other for community and moral support. But that's not enough sometimes. Sometimes we need professionals who can give us more insight about how we can have stronger relationships with ourselves, with our partners, with our kids. And so that's the whole point of our roundtable. And so I'm super excited to welcome Andrea Cecilia G. Dunn. And I've heard her introduce herself. She uses all of those. So, first of all, Andrea, welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm very eager and happy to be here. Really excited to chit chat and really get to know everybody and share this space.
Awesome. So, Andrea, when she and I first got on the phone call or on the phone together, oh, by the way, side note, if you are watching this live and you would like to ask questions, you can do that if you're in our Facebook group. That's the only place that we're fielding for questions. So if you do see me look to the side, it's because I have it on my other monitor. So I'm looking for questions there. But when Andrea and I first met, the word that kept coming up over and over and over in our conversation was compassion. And when I said, this is something that, my goodness, compassion and community, compassion underscores community. And I think it is the key to world peace. I'm guessing you probably agree.
Absolutely. Through my training with the disciple of the Dalai Lama and cognitive-based compassion training, one of the things that I learned that I really hold dear to my heart is that compassion is the other side of love. When we are in the upward, it's about love, it's about everything is happiness. But when someone is going through any kind of struggle, or even ourselves, really suffering is part of life, despite we like it or not. It is part of life. And compassion is really about embracing that aspect of our common humanity.
And I often think, we're recording this for the first time, our first live conversation together in January of 2023. So it's been nearly 3 years since our world went completely upended, completely cattywampus and sideways and upside down with the pandemic, with the COVID pandemic. And my family went through a loss a few months before that when my mom passed on. And I got to a point where I was like, you know what? If one more person tells me to have grace for myself, I might reach through the interwebs and proverbially use a cast iron pan, because I'm so tired of hearing, give yourself grace, give yourself grace. And I know we're going to ultimately talk about how to have these truthful conversations with teens, but I think we both agree that self-compassion or grace for yourself underscores a lot of this.
Yes. Because at the end, everything begins and it starts with ourselves. Whatever experience we have is the result of the dialogue that is taking place with ourselves. Sure. And so many times we are in autopilot and we've been programming by many conditions, family conditions, cultural conditions, you name it, all the list. Yeah. And we are programmed by these conditions, and we start to identify ourselves with them, and we start to miss the opportunity to have the space when we can make a choice and redefine who we truly are, and not be tied up to these beliefs that they're really working against to our capacity to level ourselves and really show up in our highest possibility.
Sure. So then, if we're going to take this into how to have truthful conversations with your teen, okay, we've established that it is a basis, or it is one of the foundations, maybe not the only foundation. But why is having self-compassion so important in order to be able to have these truthful conversations? And yes, our focus today is teens, but really I would expect it's with anybody.
Absolutely. So the key word in here is compassion, and self-compassion is tied up to vulnerability, hand in hand. And that is tied up to authenticity. So Why this is important? Because the way I connect to others is through common humanity. And that means that I need to show up in a relatable way. And a lot of times we set up very high expectations for ourselves. And what that does is that we become a little bit stiff and disconnected from us. And so there is some rigorous aspects that come across that it makes the communication not be so relatable. So when I'm completely authentic with myself and I say, gee, I really try to do my best, yet there are a lot of imperfections that they're really part of life, and I need to forgive myself. And by forgiving myself, I can relax, know that I'm in my growth age, know that I will not do it perfect, but the intent is to continue to grow. And that is the key, because that puts me in alignment with the flow of life. It will support me to continue grow. And in that sense, my team can relate to me as a human being who goes through bumps as such as he or she or they, whatever way you want to use
Absolutely.
the correct pronoun, and really have a common ground. Well, we know that each of us have a specific role, but that role is not something stiff that is carved in some kind of metal that is rigid, but is full of flexibility and really life, because life is not perfect. Because if it will be perfect, it will not be flowing, so there is always a new instance of something that it can grow. Growth is the key of life. And for that, we need to stand ourselves in the possibility that we have imperfection, that we have our growth edges, and that take us to the next level, to the next level,
Sure.
to the next level.
Well, and what I've found in working with families, I've been in the family higher ed space for, I'm in my 25th year. So I've seen a lot of families, and I've heard a lot from kids, and I've heard a lot from parents. And it seems to me that our children, and I say our meaning I'm always open that I don't actually have children of my own, but I have, my students and my friends' kids, to the extent that I take them as my own and that I have an influence on them in some fashion. I just lost my train of thought. Oh, I know what it is. So from a little bit of personal experience, but really watching others, our children are actually our greatest teachers.
Absolutely.
So how does that tie in to the self-compassion and the vulnerability, do you think?
The beautiful question. Well, why they are our teachers? Because they are the mirror when we see our reflection back to us of the things that we cannot see in that internal dialogue. And what does that mean is that in order for me to expand, we create in that internal dialogue that is conditioned by all the external things and the talents that we have. It's all kind of intertwined together. We create a vision of something. But then when we go about making that vision to be something tangible is when we bump into all the potholes and all that. So when we put that in the context of our relationship with our kids, we go there for this amazing conversation, and then boomer, something happened that it was not part of the expectation. And now we withdraw, we hold back. And what is very important about this is that we can really build an awareness that in the moment these things take place, we can take a step back and own our experience. That means embracing whatever is happening within us. And the moment we do that, we modeling for our kids that it's okay to feel angry, that it's okay to feel vulnerable, that it's okay to have all these experiences, but we don't need to act on them. We own them. And by doing that, we embrace, first of all, a safety for ourselves. By doing that, automatically, by ripple effect, we're creating a safety space for them, because we modeling that it's okay to having this experience. And now the self-judgment that we usually project on ourselves is not longer part of the conversation.
So we had a conversation in our group. Every Monday, I invite families to share what's on their mind about mental health.
Mhm.
Sometimes people respond, sometimes people don't. Recently, one of the moms commented saying, my kid like forgets things, or, oh, it was a mistake, mom. Or mom says when the kid wants to go see their boyfriend or girlfriend, I'm trying to keep it generic here, then the kid does all the things, even says, Mom, can I come help you with something? Like, so the mom is taking this as an example of like, clearly the kid knows what needs to get done. Clearly the kid, when the priority is there, can be thoughtful and considerate when there's something in it for her. But the mother observes that when there isn't a treat on the line, or a carrot, as it were, right, to go toward the appeal, the kid's like a bump on a log and says, oh, I forgot, or whatever. So the child, also the teenager, also deals with some mental health challenges and whatnot. What would you say to this mom about how she might want to show up, or what actions she could take from your perspective of compassion,
Right.
to help mitigate some of the frustrations? Because the mom's like, dude, it pisses me off. Understandably, right? Parents get frustrated when the kids don't do what they've been asked to do.
Right.
So what would your suggestion be? Because I'm sure she's not alone. I'm sure this is not the only child on the planet who's ever done this.
My first suggestion, it will be, the first thing you need to do is, when you are about to engage in this type of conversations, take a moment to pause and be fully present. Bring all your anticipations, all the dragging from whatever happened 5 minutes ago, 2 days ago with your kid, to leave it where they're at, and all the projections into the fear or whatever will or will not happen into the future, leave it there, and come present to yourself, and know that every moment is a new opportunity to open a new door. And that new door you don't know what holds behind it, but if you really bring forward your intentionality, and that means with an open heart, open to whatever is offered, then you set yourself to success, whatever is on the other side of the door. That's the first thing I want to say. The second thing is very important, that you engage in a conversation where you are clear the way you're showing up. If you're showing up in a way demanding something because you are frustrated, pissed off, or whatever is feelings that you are holding, is going to project, and your kid is going to pick it up in a second, and it will be reactive regardless of the words that you use, because it's in your vibration, and it's in the tone of your voice and the body language. So the first thing is, I'm coming into this conversation knowing the greatness that is in my kid, despite the way he or she is reacting towards whatever I'm saying. And yet I will set boundaries that they are helpful for both of us to operate, but I'm standing ground for their greatness. So when you make that request, first of all, my invitation is to reframe the conversation by starting with an acknowledgement. And this is not about sugarcoating anything. It's speaking truthfully. What you have to acknowledge about your kid that is really contributing in your life, even if that is triggering you, so that way you can grow yourself to the next level.
You're the third person who's commented on the post, or on the inquiry about find the good.
Yes.
Find the good.
All
find
the way.
the good.
Always.
Find the good.
That's the first thing, because the moment you reframe the way you're showing up, the first is how you enter the space. Because the moment you enter the space holding safety for you and authenticity, you set up that for your kid. You set up the container. The moment you set up the container of communication, then you reframing the conversation automatically. If and on top of that, you acknowledging whatever contribution, shape, or form your kid is doing in your life, by being part of your life the way it is, not the way you wish it to be, you automatically put your kid at ease.
You put them at ease,
then
yeah.
you can invite a new type of conversation into the space.
And it can be something as simple as one of our other professionals right now, I cannot remember. I've had so many fantastic conversations this month. They said, instead of, as soon as your kid comes in, asking them questions and, asking them to answer you and interact with you, how was your day? How was school? How was hockey? How was this? How was that? A simple statement of, it's so good to see you.
Yes.
Or, I love seeing you walk through the door. Every time you walk through the door, my heart leaps.
Absolutely.
Which
Absolutely
is probably a true statement for most parents in at least the folks that we're going to be reaching, right? They're here because they love their kids, or grandparents, aunts, uncles, that type of thing. And, I actually use that with my best friend's kiddos. I saw them on Friday for the first time in a few weeks. And we were in the car going somewhere. And, of course, it was the rush and the run getting out of the house to get, the preteens and the teens in the car and like, let's go. And I thought about this conversation, and I specifically turned around and I said, you know what, guys, we don't get to see each other as often anymore. I just really want to tell you how much I like getting a chance to see you and catch up with you.
Yes.
And they just kind of, like, they seemed honestly a little bit taken aback, because I've never said those words to them. Usually it's like, hey, how's school going? Or how's hockey? Or how's marching band? Or whatever the case may be. But like, just the statement of, I like being with you.
Yes.
Who doesn't
And I want to talk very briefly about exactly what you just said. Look, it's very interesting to notice that when you make an acknowledgement, instead of starting the conversation with a question, because a question, without creating that container, that safety container, automatically it is experienced as a judgment.
Oh. Even something as innocuous as, how was school today?
Yes.
Wow,
because
I never thought about that.
Need to reframe. You need to set up the space where the inquiry is based on celebration and acknowledgement. So that's why it's so important that you make that statement, and you really need to speak from your heart. Whatever, you need to source yourself, go within and see in that moment what is taking you, what is touching in your heart about your kid. When you're looking at your teen in front of you, what is it right now in this moment that you can say, this is the brilliance that you have, and you projecting that into me? The moment you do that, you put that individual, and it's not only for a teenager, you put that individual in front of you at ease. And the moment you put them at ease, the defenses drop. And the moment the defenses drop, the curiosity and the creativity kicks in. And so now you frame the space to start to create those questions that really come in with the opportunity to see their brilliance instead of judging them. And not that you're about to judge them, but it's very important that that is set up in that way, so that way the question is received with the understanding that there is an intention of acknowledging whatever contribution, whatever positive aspect is about themselves.
The other thought that comes to me, and this isn't something you and I have spoken of, but I imagine you're going to feel similarly, is, from a biblical perspective, as you seek, so shall you find, or as you sow, so shall you reap. But in a non-biblical text, you find what you look for. And if you're looking for the good intentionally, you will find more good. Not to say that the bad isn't there.
Right.
And even labeling good and bad is judging, let's be honest. But when you look for the things that make your heart sing, not just the things that make your heart break, if you look for those love-based ideas, even if it's as simple as like, wow, your hair looks really good today.
Yes.
Or, I love your smile, or those things. Like, it may feel like you're grasping for straws, but the more intentional we are in looking for the positive,
right,
I believe the more positive we find. And likewise, the less the negative frustrates us.
Right. And I'm glad that you trying to find a different way to name the positive and negative, because really it's not so much about that polarity. Let's be clear. We live in a world of polarity because that's the way our mind interprets the world. Absolutely. But what is important to understand in here, that when we say positive is the things that they are in alignment with the natural growth of life,
Sure.
looking for goodness. And
Mhm.
when we say negative, it's the things that hold us back and
Mhm.
create a stall that is against the natural flow of life.
I love that. And I think to circle back to what you were saying, okay, we're establishing, look for the things that help us grow, both ourselves and the kids that we're supporting, but be compassionate with ourselves because growth doesn't happen overnight. Have the compassion for ourselves and for our kids. Be vulnerable, be comfortable, or practice, because it's not like you can like flip a switch and be like, be comfortable being vulnerable. Like that's like saying don't get afraid to walk on stage and give a speech. It doesn't happen overnight, but in little tidbits. And I think that goes for ourselves as well. Like, hey, good job not losing your cool,
Right.
or good job biting your tongue, or good job finding something good or
Right.
positive in them. Track those progress pieces. How does that tie into what you identify as the skill to bounce back? What do you mean by that?
Very good question. Thank you so much, Clarissa. So, yeah, we have every moment, every second, we have an opportunity to make a choice how we're going to feel about whatever life is offering us.
Okay.
It doesn't really matter what it is. We have a choice. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to pretend that whatever emotions we experience and we just put it under the rug, they don't exist, and we pretend to be la la, all happy, right?
Sure.
No, we need to allow the emotions to run through the process. If I'm angry, I need to find an outlet to process that emotion. But once it runs off, and I'm going to give you and these groups a tip that you probably do not know. It takes 90 seconds between to be exposed to something outside of the world that it triggers us and the emotional process with the hormones to complete one cycle. So if we get upset for something someone did, just let's say someone slammed a door in front of us, if we stay upset half an hour, it's because we choose to continue running the same cycle.
Okay.
So with that in mind, look at the power that gives us about our own experience.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that every moment we have an opportunity to choose how we're going to feel about something that is taking place. Now, that doesn't mean that in a snap, we're going to be able to shift from anger or frustration to nothingness, right? Because we need to be compassionate and all what we just said.
Sure.
But the thing is, we eat an elephant by small bites, as you just said a moment ago. So the important thing is that we continue moving towards, the reframing of the situation. So
Right.
if right now I'm fully triggered, I should aim to be not so fully triggered, right?
Right.
Just a little bit out of, just a little bit more grounded. And the moment I'm achieving that, the moment I set that for myself, I give myself a little hug or something to acknowledge that I was able to do it. So
Right.
how we insert this in their everyday life when we dealing, with our kids? Well, when that triggering thing happened, the best thing you can do is nothing. And give yourself a moment in whatever shape or form is best for you. Either withdraw yourself, go to the bathroom, do whatever you need to have a moment of silence where you can go inward and saying, it's okay that I feel triggered. I'm really overwhelmed and it's hard for me to generate any compassion in this moment. I cannot do that. And the only way I can do it is I find it first inside myself. And so what that looks like is it's okay to be upset. It is okay that I'm triggered. And I just breathe into it. And I understand that it will take me a moment to overcome that. And so the next question is, what can I do for myself? And you can ask these things. Your body will tell you. What can I do for myself right now that will support me to get through this frustration,
Sure.
to get at ease? What can I do for myself?
Mm-hmm.
And you put the other situation on hold. And the best thing you can do, if your kid is coming to you, your teen is requesting something and you cannot formulate an answer because you know that snakes are going to come out of your mouth, you said very gently, you know what? I will be more than happy to answer your question, but it will not be right now.
Right. I need a couple minutes.
I'll need time. And you tell them, don't over offer something that you cannot really have integrity with.
Sure.
So check with you and see, do I need half an hour, do I need a whole day? And that's when you set healthy boundaries, because now you're not saying yes, you're not saying no, you're taking your time to go through whatever it takes, and your son or daughter needs to understand that this is part of the process.
Sure. Well, and I think the other side, gosh, there's so many things going off in my head, Andrea. We could talk all day. So there's two things that come to me, tying back to what you said about recognizing the good. I think it's a win, number one, to recognize that you're triggered.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? Maybe the first 10 times you recognize that you're triggered and you still respond immediately and the snakes come out your face.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I would count recognizing the trigger as
Mm-hmm.
a win and a step in the direction.
Absolutely.
And then, okay, I got triggered. Now I can breathe.
Right.
I'm going to breathe for 5 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I made it 5 seconds and then the snakes came out my mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but the next 10 times you recognized it and you breathed for 15 seconds before the snakes came out your mouth, right?
Yes.
Those are massive progress points. They may
Absolutely.
feel like, but I still reacted the same way. Well, yeah, but you know what? We don't lose 50 pounds overnight either,
Mm-hmm.
right? We have to, and acknowledging the good in ourselves. And the second thing that came up, actually 3 thoughts, is we can also, maybe we say, give me 10 minutes. And then we recognize in 10 minutes, I'm still not in a place to deal with this. I think that comes back to self-compassion and vulnerability, doesn't it? Of going, you know what? I thought 10 minutes was going to be enough. And if we actually address this now, snakes are going to come out my mouth. Can you give me another 10 minutes and let me see if I'm there?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But I think the other side of it, and this is where I know as the child in my mother-child relationship, I didn't feel empowered, is that giving our students, our kids, the children that we're supporting, the teens that we're supporting, giving them the space to do the same thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's really hard, I think, for a lot of adults who are like, you answer me right now, or you look at me when I'm talking to you, or, irrespective of what kind of a day the student has had at school or what happened with their boyfriend or girlfriend or any of that. I think those pieces tie in, but those are the keys to bouncing back, right? Like
Yes.
recognizing those baby steps. And maybe even, if we give our kids the space to say that when they're like, you know what, Mom, I'm triggered. And I need space to breathe. There's something to acknowledge, isn't there? Which takes us right back to the beginning.
Absolutely. The one of the key core things that we need to name, and what all the amazing insights that you brought into the space, is integrity. First, integrity with myself. And then as a ripple effect, the capacity to name it, so I have integrity with you. So if I choose 10 minutes and 10 minutes it was not enough and I undercall my needs because this is a muscle that I'm building and I'm still not know exactly how it goes, then I check again and I go there, and when the 10 minutes are over, before he or she or they come to ask me, I go forward because I want to have integrity. Say, hey, I told you 10 minutes, but 10 minutes is not enough. And I want to give you my best. And now I'm not in my place to give you my best. I'm not in that place yet. And because you deserve the best of me, I want to match that. And right now is not the time. So I will come back to you whenever, you decide. And I will fulfill, the need of a response. But right now, I have not capacity to give you my best. And so that way you get him or her out of the hook. It's not about them. It's about you be able to show up at your best. And you do it not because they claim for it, it's because it's the choice that you set up your course as a mother or father, that you want to model what is going to give your kid the resilience to bounce back when things show up in their life.
We could talk all day, and unfortunately, we just don't have all day for this conversation. I know we'll be talking again. So what I'd like to do is wrap up this portion of our conversation. And I always like to wrap up with our foundations of connection. For those of you who aren't familiar with the foundations of connection, these came out of my 2 decades of working with teenagers and questioning, why is it that teens feel more comfortable sometimes talking to me about things than they do about mom and dad? Because sometimes they're just not ready, or maybe there's judgment or this, that, or the other thing. And so all the letters, the first letters of the phrases spell out connection. If you'd like a copy of these, we do have them on our website, right on our homepage. But I'd like to ask all of our guests, which of these resonate the most? So I'm going to say them quickly for anyone who's listening. And then, Andrea, I'd love to know which one like pops for you most today. And I know based on our conversation, you're going to be like, there are several, but I'm going to invite you to pick one. Okay, so create a safe place, observe, non-judgment, nod and smile, explore, challenge your truths or curiosity. I think you've actually even used that word today. Take your time, innovate, own your own story, and nurture. What would you say?
I would say the first one, create a safe space, because it's the first step we need to take.
And your postulation is that acknowledging the good in the other person is an awesome first step to take to help establish that.
Absolutely. And you know what? Before that, to do that to oneself.
Well, because if we can't be safe for ourselves, how can we be safe for anyone else?
Exactly.
We could talk all day. And in fact, I do actually get to talk with Andrea a little bit more, as do members of Parent Tween Village. She is going to gift us a little bit more of her time, and we're going to talk about the distinction between hearing and listening, again, in the context of dealing with our teens and tweens. But so much of this is just human interaction, right?
Yes.
And so for those of you listening, if you're not yet part of Parent Tween Village, come on over to our website and check it out. It's a community for parents, grandparents, aunts, and uncles, as well as many of the professionals who work with us and who are on our Trusted Expert Network. And it's a cool community for just some support and a little bit more intimate interaction with other adults who support teens. So, Andrea, thank you so much for the time that you've given us already, and I will see you over in Parent Tween Village very shortly.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Carissa, for this opportunity. It's been a pleasure, and thank you for all the audience to have also the opportunity to share this space and this incredible conversation. Have a nice evening.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.